I was far more entrepreneurial in fifth grade than I realized. I went to a local, what today would be a Quick Trip, and I bought these long strands of gum that were like, I think 25 cents for one strand, and or maybe it was 5 cents, and I sold it for 25 cents. But anyway, I bought the whole box, and I took it to school, and I was selling it to all the kids in my class, and the principal did not look upon that favorably. So he almost expelled a fifth grader for his entrepreneurial spirit and my capitalistic approach. But even back then, I was doing things to make money that I like to do on my own.
In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun about all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America.
Hi, I'm Joe Deshawn, and welcome to the Corporate Couch with Jeff Palacio. Today's episode is brought to you by Palacio and Partners, providing turnkey podcast creation, hosting, production, promotion, and related creative resources for you and your business. Today, Jeff is interviewing John Mercurio. John is the CEO of Blue Ocean Search Firm and a seasoned leader with over 30 years of experience spanning human and animal health industries. His career began in ophthalmology sales with a Fortune 500 company, where he earned multiple President's Club and Salesperson of the Year honors. From 2008 to 2024, John held key roles in the animal health sector, including Vice President, Chief Commercial Officer, and Director of Business Development, developing high-performing teams across sales, management, and executive leadership. You can learn more about John at blueoceansf.com. Let's listen as Jeff talks to John.
John, welcome to the Corporate Couch this morning.
Jeff, thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, you're like the first person on the podcast that I think I have had others that I met during COVID, but it was all like Zoom. But you're the first person I met, and we went out early on, and we went to Lee Summit, Missouri, 3rd Street Social, and had lunch.
Yeah, if any of my friends are listening, they're going to be like, yeah, we understand. That's the only place John ever takes anyone, is 3rd Street Social. Like, is there another restaurant in downtown Lee Summit? So they're all laughing. They will all be laughing when they listen to this
it's
podcast.
Fantastic. Jennifer Delaney, who I worked with at Airtana Therapeutics, worked with you at Companion Animal Health, and introduced us, I believe. So, that was just was fun because you had a lot of people who didn't want to go out, and that's fine. But I think we were like, yeah, we can go out.
Let's get together.
Yeah. It's all good. Ate outside.
Yeah, and I've appreciated the fact that we've stayed in touch and built a friendship over the time, and not just the connectivity in our professional lives, but also what we share in our personal lives as well. It's been great.
Yeah. And I don't use much video. But your beard is looking fantastic, by the way.
So, Thank you very much.
So, excited to talk to you. You've done a lot of things in kind of human health, which is always weird. But when you're in animal health, you got to kind of separate them. So that's how we separate them. And you've done both, as well as founded your own company. So we'll get into that. But John, even your friends that know you fairly well, what one thing would surprise them about you?
Well, this is something that you can carry a chip on your shoulder about the answer I'm going to give. I did not finish college. I think most of them who have known me past what would be college life would have probably assumed that, based on some of the fortunate opportunities I've had in my professional career, that college would have been the foundation of that. So I think more than anything that might surprise them, because it's not something we have conversation about today. Because at my age, you're not talking about, hey, when were you in college? What did you do in college? It was way too long ago.
Yeah.
So that would probably be it.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, like today, it's like you're, at a certain age, if they do not want to talk to you because you don't have a college degree, you don't want to work for that company anyhow. Like, okay,
Well, it's true, Jeff. And for the longest time, I really did carry that chip on my shoulder because in most of the places that I have worked, it was a given. And somebody blessed me with an opportunity that I think I've shared with you before, that on paper I was not the right guy by normal hiring standards. But somebody saw something in me and they gave me an opportunity that they wouldn't have otherwise. And I made sure to carry that gift of the opportunity through the rest of my life and be grateful for something that without that I may have not had.
yeah, yeah. I'd love to get back to that later in the conversation, but talk about, well, and just to kind of wrap up in today's world, I believe you don't need college, and
I'm with you, and we see that more and more.
yeah. But I had a close friend. We went to college together. We met on the first day. Manhattan College, now Manhattan University. He did not graduate either. He had a long, successful career in tech sales, startups. He was at Hayes Modem, if you remember Hayes back in the
Oh
mid
yeah,
90s. Like he was in the heyday,
yeah.
moved to Portland, Lake Oswego, Oregon, and he was in the storage industry. Like he was a pioneer, really. Eastman McGovern, I've interviewed on a podcast, one of the most listened to podcasts I've had. But yeah, you don't need, like, and he had the same feeling. I remember him, we were having a conversation after many beers late at night, and he was lamenting that he did not have a college degree. I go, Eastman, why? Like you are successful. Like, what do you need a college degree for?
No, and you're so right. But Jeff, and I'm sure we'll talk about this some later in the podcast as well. In the recruiting world that I'm in, it still surprises me that there are companies who you get. I've seen candidates get to the very last stage, like legitimately between them and maybe one other person, and they find out that one of the candidates doesn't have a degree, and they are no longer the candidate of choice. And it just shocks me that there are folks out there who still think, while I am not minimizing the value of a college degree and the commitment to stick through something for that period of time and get your college degree, I certainly encouraged my kids. Two of them did, two of them didn't, and they're all successful in their own professional lives. But it does surprise me today that it's still an outlook when there's a lot of talented people out there that you don't have access to because you refuse to, you know, move them forward as a result of that one thing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's ridiculous too. They went through all the way, to several rounds of interviews, and at the end, you're not gonna, like, you liked them, but
Right,
then they didn't have a degree,
right.
and now you don't like them. I mean, like, you don't want to work for that company anyhow. It's stupid,
It's exactly what I told the candidate. You're better off
right? Like,
because you wouldn't have enjoyed that place
the
to begin
universe
with.
or
So
God gave you a gift. Just accept it and move on.
if you think about the difference between folks who fit more the corporate mentality and want to work in a corporate environment and have a job versus the skill set it takes to be an entrepreneur and start something and see it through, not much difference between starting something like a new business and the commitment it takes to get through to the other side, because there's a lot of difficulties along the way. In the same way that going to college and completing your degree requires you to get over certain humps and get to the other side. So I think there's so many traits in somebody who is an entrepreneurial type thinker that would be of value to a company, that you should not limit it to the fact that they do or don't have a 4-year education.
Yeah, and plus they're picking a degree or degrees, because most people change their majors at least once. I think it's the exception if you go in saying I'm going to be a finance major or accounting or engineering and not change. But yeah, and so you're 18 to 22 years old thinking, okay, I know what I want to do. There's no way you can pick it. Like, everybody I interview, over 140 people in the podcast, its career journeys are crazy. You start as an engineer and you end up an entrepreneur in a multi-unit food business or something like that. It's crazy. John, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in St. Louis, spent the first 30-ish years of my life in St. Louis. My wife and I had our first two daughters in St. Louis, and then she had family in Kansas City, had spent time growing up in Kansas City. And then I had an opportunity with Alcon Surgical was the company that I was working for at the time in the ophthalmic world. There was an opening for a capital equipment salesperson, and we decided to bring our family to Kansas City, and we're very fortunate we did. We love Kansas City. We live in I always say Lee Summit, but we actually live in Greenwood. Our kids went to Lee Summit High, and we've been in the area for over 30 years now, and watched the whole Lee Summit area grow
Yeah,
tremendously over that period of time.
so you've seen a lot of growth.
It's been amazing.
Yeah. What was fun for you growing up in St. Louis as a kid? What did you love doing?
Oh, I was huge into sports, so very big St. Louis Blues. Hockey is probably my sport of choice. I love them all, but hockey was my sport of choice. So, as a young kid, my father, although we didn't have a ton of money, made the investment in season tickets. So,
Wow.
was fortunate enough to go to a lot of hockey games. I don't think you live in St. Louis without being a baseball Cardinal fan, whether you love baseball, like baseball,
Right.
or somewhere in between. Everybody's a Redbird fan. But yeah, it was. Certainly love sports, playing sports, be involved in different sports activities over the years. It was a ton of fun. And then as I got older and became of age of other things, I did spend a lot of time on Laclede's Landing. That was a very fun place to be when you're in your early 20s, and just want to go out and have a good time. But yeah, it was a fun city. Jeff, it's interesting to me. It wasn't until I moved to Kansas City and understand the distinct differences between the East Coast mentality of St. Louisans and the very Midwest mentality
Yes.
of Kansas Cityans, and it's a very distinct difference. And I don't think I realized it until I got to experience both.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've visited St. Louis many times. I actually have been to a Blues game, as well
Good.
as St. Louis Rams back in the
Yeah.
heyday of the Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner days, and been to Busch Stadium several times. So yeah, and I guess St. Louis, it's a thing like everybody knows, like you say, what high school you went to, right? Right? Is that the thing?
That is a thing.
Yeah, that's
It is a thing. I cannot tell you the origin or why
right.
that became a thing,
Yeah.
but you don't meet another person from St. Louis that question isn't
Yeah, it's
asked.
like Wichita is the same way, Wichita, Kansas, and in New Jersey is, what exit? Like, where do you live? What exit? That's the New
Really?
Jersey thing.
Wow.
Um,
That's interesting.
so when you were 10 years old, did you have aspiration of playing right wing for the St. Louis Blues? What was kind of what were you thinking about at the time?
Yeah, it was actually left wing. So yes, I had aspirations of playing professional hockey, and I was a left winger. I shoot left-handed, although I'm right-handed, which is interesting. I should say shot left-handed. I don't shoot the
Yeah,
hockey puck much anymore.
right.
But yeah, it was definitely the thing that I wanted to do, and I played right up until high school, and we had a high school team until my freshman year, and they dropped it my freshman
Oh,
year. So that changed things for me. And I wasn't a big guy growing up, not a big guy today necessarily, but being, a defensive lineman or even the quarterback on the football team wasn't going to be the thing because I was too small to do that. So, yeah, that kind of slowed down the pursuit of a hockey career. But look, the reality is I wasn't born in Canada and I didn't start skating at 2 years old. So the likelihood was slim, but certainly had a vision in my own mind of doing it.
right.
Yeah.
So talk about post high school, like talk about, the kind of your journey, you don't have to talk about every step, but love to hear more details about the gifts that person gave you in terms of kind of early on in your professional career.
I'll start back sooner than you probably want me to, but in my own mind, I look back and I was far more entrepreneurial in fifth grade than I realized. I went to a local, what today would be a Quick Trip, and I bought these long strands of gum that were like, I think 25 cents for one strand, and or maybe it was 5 cents, and I sold it for 25 cents. But anyway, I bought the whole box and I took it to school and I was selling it to all the kids in my class, and the principal did not look upon that favorably. So he almost expelled a fifth grader for his entrepreneurial spirit and my capitalistic approach. But even back then, I was doing things to make money that I like to do on my own versus as time went on, get a job. But because I didn't graduate college at that time, Jeff, I landed a job in a place called Deluxe Check Printers. I was in customer service. I always had aspirations of getting into sales because you know not being the smartest guy on the planet, but enjoying conversation and meeting people and connecting and networking, that seems something that would be a natural kind of fit for me. So I thought that I might get into the banking sales world, but again, they required a college degree to move into that position, so that wasn't going to happen. When I met my wife, I was working at Deluxe Check Printers. I was making $17,000 a year, which you don't raise a family on.
Right.
And I happened to meet in the gym one of well, he was the franchise owner of uh, the franchise of Weight Watchers in the Missouri area. And we hit it off in the gym, and he was trying to build corporate accounts where you went in and you sold to the big companies in St. Louis, the corporate program. And he offered me a job in helping him build that business. And so I went from $17,000 to $30,000 a
Whoa.
year, which was well, I was living high on the hog at the
Yeah,
time,
you were at
and
the
so
Westport Landing celebrating that
yeah,
promotion.
yeah. So my wife and I could graduate from ramen to some other
Yeah.
type of high end food at that point. I did that for probably 3 years, and similar situation. I met someone through either being at the gym or some other networking activity, and this gentleman, Al Wolk is his name. He is still one of my best friends today. We hit it off, and he was telling me how he was going to get a promotion to a regional manager within his company, which was Alcon. And, just I randomly said, hey, if you're looking to fill the role of the sales position that you're leaving when you take this job, I would love to interview. And I told him, like I would anybody at that point, look, don't want to get too far down the path. I don't have a college degree. So if that's something that's going to keep me from being able to move forward, then just need you to know that up front so that I don't get too far down the path. And, we're all disappointed in the process because I didn't share this with you. So it was a requirement at the company. I do believe that in the role, I was the first person ever to get an opportunity that did not have a college degree, but Al was someone who stood up for what he believed in the person, and went from $30,000 to something very different in a short window of time. And that was kind of the launching pad of my sales career in the human health world at that time for almost 20 years.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic because, I mean, I think there's more leniency about not having college degrees today, but there's still, I mean, I know close friends that have applied and don't get it because the requirement is a college degree, and they just don't. They have an associate's degree, or they never finished a 4-year program, and they won't get it.
And Jeff, I do understand it, because if it comes down to two candidates and the candidates are equal and you have to find something to differentiate who you choose, the commitment to complete your degree versus someone who didn't, I can understand that being a reason why you might choose someone over another, but not if they are the candidate that you want and you don't hire them because they don't
Yeah.
have it. And that for me, the value of not having the degree and receiving the opportunity that I knew that on paper somebody else maybe deserved, I was never going to let that person down.
Yeah,
I was
you
going
work
to
harder because of it. Yeah.
Absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, there was no way I was not going to be on the President's Club trip every year and overachieve from a quota perspective. And, to this day, have never forgotten that. So much so that my wife says, you have proven yourself enough now after 37 years of, being in professional sales that you can. I said, no, somebody gave me an opportunity that I will always be grateful for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Changed my life, changed our lives, frankly, our family's life.
Yeah. So, you're obviously you're very relatable. You're a relationship builder. You're personable. That all helps in terms of sales. But did you have maybe Al was a mentor, or did you read books? Like, what was your process of becoming better at helping people in terms of providing value to them and selling?
It's a great question, Jeff. It is, I did understand the relatability component, so I used that, as much as I could. But I have always been someone who enjoys reading and enjoys reading about something that I want to get better at. And so the whole sales book thing, even the things that they call self-help today, that kind of those categories of things, I really enjoy both listening to podcasts and reading books on, because, to me, every day that I can take a step to be better either in my career or as a person, I want to try to do, and learned a lot through that. Al is a tremendous salesperson, and he was a great mentor. I worked in a capacity under Al for probably 5 years, and then took a new role within Alcon and moved up into a different role, and had another person who was a tremendous mentor. And I'm the type of learner that learns by watching somebody else do versus, reading, or being in a classroom environment. So to have those two people be so good at what they did and be able to watch how they approach their profession was a big plus for me.
So at one point you move on from Alcon. What was kind of the impetus to that, and what was the opportunity for you?
Yeah, so Alcon was a company that people didn't leave. I mean, it was everything about being there. It was a great company, and I got lured into an opportunity to launch LASIK laser into the U.S. with a competitive ophthalmic company, Bausch and Lomb. So it was exciting to me, and again, kind of, it felt entrepreneurial. Although I worked for a company, the whole being part of a team launching a new device into the U.S. for a new procedure that was really taking off was something that was exciting to me. So I joined a team of, I think it was 9 salespeople, a couple technical guys that installed and trained, and it was really fun to be part of something new like that coming into the U.S. health market.
Yeah, must have been fantastic. I mean, yeah, obviously Bausch and Lomb, like you said, is a huge company, but I mean, it's a startup division, small,
Yeah.
probably felt very entrepreneurial at the time, and very exciting. What was your biggest learning during that process, going from an established, not only established company, but established products and product lines that you're selling, to kind of, hey, this is new shit. How do I sell this into ophthalmologists?
Yeah, that's not only it being new and understanding how you're taking someone and trying to impress on them what essentially is a new business model. I mean, they were spending at the time somewhere between 350 and $500,000 for a device that most of these guys were cataract surgeons first and foremost, and then they were moving into being refractive surgeons. And so, the training component that was important, how you had to talk about the business model side of things versus feature and benefit about a product. I think that's one of the things that became most important, that, anybody can feature and benefit sell, but you can easily be out feature and benefited in the sales process. So it is more about possibly the story behind why they should do it, the financial reasoning and the business model they should create, to change, their own practice and how they can grow and evolve, which I think, whether you're a doctor with a practice or a business owner, that thought, that mindset around how you always need to continue to evolve and not stay the same has proven itself over and over again. I make references so many times to, and you and I were talking about it earlier, where Blockbuster was, they owned a space, right? And they didn't evolve. And now where do we watch all our movies? And every piece of TV is around Netflix and streaming. So
Right.
I think the same holds true for professionals like that. They need to continue to look at how they evolve. And I think from a selling perspective, that was a key time frame for me to understand and learn that part of the process.
Yeah, which is a fantastic lesson too, because I mean, we're going to talk a lot about AI coming up here in terms of what you're doing, your new business, but it's just, you have to evolve. Like, things are going to change whether you want them to or not. Like, these people hold on to what they're used to in the current process, thinking if they do, they'll be okay, but obviously they're not.
It's interesting, Jeff. Whether it's in a medical practice, whether it's in an entrepreneurial business that you start up, the percent that are super successful are those that are constantly looking at how they can get better and evolve their business, versus those that stay in a place or not nearly as successful. It's not because one is a better doctor than another all the time. It's because somebody is very forward thinking in how they want to grow their business. And so they combine all those things and move forward versus staying stagnant. So it's something I've really worked on in my own sales and managerial and leadership roles, because I think it's important.
So now, you kind of start your career in these two kind of iconic companies, really. What made you leave Bausch and Lomb?
The short answer is I got lured by the dollar sign to get into aesthetics and sell devices in the aesthetic world. And Jeff, it's really interesting. I had success both at Alcon and Bausch and Lomb, worked hard. I, from day one, was not a fit in the aesthetic world. I'm sure it was my own issue because there was a lot of tremendously successful salespeople in the companies that I worked for the short window of time that I was in it. There was just something about it that it didn't fit what I wanted to do. And, it's why I advise so many people today when we talk about career changes, you have to enjoy where it doesn't matter how much money they pay you, right? And I'm not trying to minimize the value of the financial
Right.
impact, but if you hate your job, but you're making good money, you still hate your job and you get up every day, not liking what you're doing. And so I was in it for about 2.5 years and I was miserable. And so I decided to go out on my own and be a 1099 independent rep and pick up some products and, take that was my first, what I would call entree into the entrepreneurial approach to my business life. And when I did that, I had a colleague that had done it in the past, and he said, John, if you can survive the first year of being a 1099, you'll love it. And I had a wife and 4 daughters at home, and my wife was fortunate enough to be able to stay home and raise our kids. And I went from what was a healthy 6-figure income to $47,000 in my first year of being a 1099. And but I remembered it all 365 days that he kept telling me that if you make it your first year,
Right.
you'll do well. And it was really shortly after that things, planting all the seeds
Yeah.
and, finally reaping the rewards came about a little over a year later. But that $47,000 a year was a tough one.
Go back to the aesthetics kind of 2-year period. Were you selling to med spas or what was this?
So plastic surgery, med spas, and that was back when, med spas were really starting to take off.
Right.
They weren't at the maturity level that they are today.
Right.
So not only are you bringing all these new technologies that make all these claims and promises to make us look like we're 20 years old for the rest of our life, but you're in a growing kind of medical segment that is new and emerging. And looking back, I don't understand why I just didn't jump right in and fall in love with it, because it had so many of the components of what I like about the kind of entrepreneurial kind of startup aspect of it. But for whatever reason, it just wasn't a fit. Maybe it's because I came from essentially 2 Fortune 500 companies and the structure around those things that I wasn't quite prepared for the style that those opportunities were at that time.
Yeah.
Learned from it though, that's for sure.
Yeah, very interesting. So when you were doing 1099 sales on your own, what product lines were you selling?
So I had a couple devices that would have fit into the aesthetic space because that's what I was leaving. But within the first month of being out on my own, through the networking process, somebody said, "Hey, we have this therapy laser," and I was like, "What's a therapy laser?" I'm used to being in the OR and doing things that are more surgical based. Tell me about this therapy laser. And it was a company called Light Cure. And they had a therapy laser that treats all kinds of conditions and today is very prevalent in both the human and veterinary side. And I said yes because I needed a product, not because I was passionate about the product, but I needed a product to sell. Right. And so why not put it in my bag in case somebody might want this magic wand that shines light and fixes things? And my focus in the early stages was in the human medical space. And they had a vacancy in their veterinary division. And the leader of that division asked me if I was interested. And I said, again, why not? I need it. I need a product. I need to sell something. And from the minute I embarked down the veterinary animal health path and laser in the veterinary practices, Jeff, I fell in love with animal health. Veterinarians are just down to earth people. I am an animal lover. So to see the impact that laser therapy had on people's pets and the value that it brought to practices at that time, it was without a doubt the most fun I had selling a product into a space. The first 5 years of that, which was, 2008, I believe, is when I took that on.
Are you drowning in boring corporate communications? Palacio and Partners is here to rescue you. We transform internal podcasts from snooze fest to must-listen content that actually connects your team and strengthens your culture. Imagine podcast episodes that make your employees laugh while staying informed. Our founder, Jeff Palacio, doesn't just create podcasts, he creates conversations that break through the noise. Whether you're a growing startup or a massive corporation, we turn your company's story into audio gold. Leadership becomes human. Remote teams feel connected. Your message cuts through the clutter. Palacio and Partners, where corporate communications gets a fun makeover. Let's make your podcast work harder than your email inbox ever could. Jeff is happy to share his insights on podcasting with you. You can contact him via LinkedIn or schedule a Zoom call via the link in the episode description.
Now, I having worked about 12 years in the animal health space for a couple, 2-3 different companies. It's a very caring industry. You know, people care about each other. They care about the pet owners. They obviously care about the pets and or horses or cows. It's a very caring industry, and that's what appealed to me when I worked at those companies. It's just a different environment, from the human pharma world.
Yeah, no, night and day. And I found that most veterinarians that I called on had the same passion for their patients, I will call them at this moment, at the end of their career as they did in the beginning. That passion for the pet that was brought in to be seen in their practices never changed.
Right.
And that was most of the veterinarians that I called on. So very unique to see, and it has been a pleasure.
Yeah. So at what point did you decide to kind of get out of the 1099 world and kind of go back into the corporate world?
Yeah, I was fortunate. LightCure was the parent company, and Companion Therapy Laser was the animal health division of that. And at some point, our CEO at LightCure decided that it was best to segregate the divisions and have the human side the human reps focus on human, and the veterinary reps focus on veterinary or animal health. So we had to make a decision as individuals on the team, and I chose the veterinary side, and sold for up until the point where we were growing enough that we had a VP of sales. We needed the division needed a couple regional sales managers because one leader can only effectively manage so many salespeople. So I was fortunate to be offered an opportunity to lead half the sales team. I did that for a year and then got into business development because Companion Therapy Laser became Companion Animal Health as we added new technologies to our portfolio. We had underwater treadmill at one point in time. We had a stance analyzer at one point in time. We brought on regenerative medicine, PRP, and stem cell. So I was fortunate enough to be part of that growth and that group and that team from 2013 until LightCure, the parent company, got acquired. I believe it was December of 2020.
We're going to get into you starting Blue Ocean search firm, but you took another corporate job at Multi Radiance Medical. Talk about that transition, what you did there.
Yeah, I went to a startup called Amologic. They actually had a blood filtration device that they were trying to bring into the animal health space. So when I left Companion after the acquisition, I went to that startup and spent close to 2 years or so there. And I was about 5 years early. They really thought that they were right there and had the product ready to go and approved to move out for sales, and they weren't. So we made it last as long as we possibly could, and they launched about a year and a half ago, finally. And so because of that, I stepped down before because they really, I saw no path at that time because I couldn't build a sales team and they didn't have the financial wherewithal and the need for me to be on board at that time. And so I didn't think I'd get back into the laser world again because I really enjoyed my time at LightCure and Companion and what I thought was the number one company. But met the CEO and founder of Multi Radiance and had known the president of the company since my ophthalmic days at Alcon. We were in sales together. Wow. 30 years prior. So what a small world.
The power of relationships, right?
It really is. And I knew if that gentleman was at Multi Radiance, then it must have been a good place to be. And I had the opportunity to go over there and spend 3 years. And, some of the things that we were able to implement and change, I'm certainly very proud of. They didn't have a large animal health division. So we were able to bring some team members on there and kind of change some of the structure and approach to how they packaged and bundled deals. And, it was really fun to take, what was a a very successful company, but smaller in the animal health, and helped grow that for almost 3 years.
Yeah. So at what point while you're at Multiradius Medical do you decide, hey, I've been I have this entrepreneurial spirit, even though the principal of my school in fifth grade kind of tried to put me down and expel me. But at what point, what was the driving force for you to say, hey, I'm going to start Blue Ocean search firm?
It just it came time, Jeff, that at this age that I decided the way I wanted to end my career was one where I had, kind of, if you will, complete control over what that looked like. And I really wanted to get involved in something, that I was passionate about because, again, I go back to the connectivity and the opportunity that I was provided. I had done that over the years, connected people with opportunities, although not in an official recruiting type capacity. And I really enjoyed that. And so recruiting was something that I had actually considered 20 years prior and just never pursued, but like any smart human, you go out on your own at 62, right? And start something new at 62 years old, when in fact you should be winding things down.
Right.
But frankly, it was one of those things that I knew I could do as long as I was capable of working. And I really don't see myself sitting around in some retirement capacity, just, doing nothing every day or playing golf every day. While I enjoy golf, I can't see doing
Right.
nothing in a professional kind of work setting. One thing I didn't mention is that one of my daughters and I own, we're partners. She's the real worker behind it all, but we own Noggin's Men's Shop. It's a barbershop in Lee Summit.
Ah,
So was able to start something entrepreneurial with my second daughter. And yeah, this was
no
just
wonder your
another
hair
thing
always
that I
looks
thought.
really good and your beard.
Well,
Wow.
thank
Now
you.
I know.
Thank you very much. I have a hard time getting an appointment because she's booked most of the time, and I'm not smart enough to book mine ahead of time. So she squeezes me in when she can. But thank you for that.
Yeah.
No, I just, yeah, I felt that, the way I wanted to work the last however many years of my life was something that I could own and control, and, woke up every day, trying to build for myself versus someone else.
Yeah, no, I love that. So, uh, were you kind of building the business plan while you were still, working, or what was kind of your process, and what was the kind of driving factor? Say, okay, I'm starting in August of 2024, or whenever you started founded the company officially.
Yeah, no, had thought about it for a long time, and through listening to certain podcasts and things, I stumbled across a podcast that was talking about recruiting and how recruiting, traditional recruiting as we know it, was changing, and some of the factors at play that, again, go back to the whole Blockbuster Netflix analogy, and that, for those recruiting firms that weren't evolving, yeah, they were going to really fall behind. And so I did some research and looked into the company that was founded by the gentleman who was the guest on the podcast, and he had created this hiring system. So there's multiple layers to it, but they're utilizing a lot of tech, but the human element is still a huge part of it, and I think it will always be a huge part of recruiting, because without it, I just don't think technology can answer all the questions right before you make a decision on somebody. But in my mind, I was formulating what that was going to look like and how we could put that in place, and um, brought some team members on, including my oldest daughter, who is doing a lot in running the technical side of it. She really enjoys the different tech stack that we used for outbound search, so that we can bring new people in, and made the decision to leave and launch shortly thereafter.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Obviously, you're helped your one daughter in the stylist hair salon type environment, but what's it like working with one of your daughters on a day-to-day basis? Is that tell the audience about that?
Yeah, I would be accused of, and I think I must be a fan of nepotism because I've worked with every one of my kids in some form or fashion. Um, so I have four daughters: Jordan, Kendall, Carson, and Jensen. Jordan and I work together in the search firm. Kendall and I work together, we are partners in the barbershop. And then Carson, my third daughter, we have worked together at both Companion and Multi-Radiance. And then, she's still in the animal health industry as well. And then Jensen, my youngest, works for a colleague who we worked together at Companion. She was the director of marketing, and now has her own red brick Partners,
Oh,
which is a marketing firm, and so she's a graphic designer there. So it
nice.
helped make that connection. So we've all been connected in some form or fashion in our professional lives as well. It's been amazing.
Yeah, no,
Couldn't imagine it any other way.
yeah, that's great. So I love the technology side of what you're doing, and obviously the human element. Talk about what kind of things you do that are going to really help the a company's recruiting team, or talk about the differences, and a little more detail on the kind of how the technology works, and then what's the human component of what you're doing.
Yeah, so the group that I was telling you about is out of the UK, and recruiting is huge in the UK. I mean, I didn't know this until I, went further down the path of doing my research, but a lot of recruiting firms there, and a gentleman named James Blackwell founded a firm at a very young age, and he's very much a forward thinker, and he's the one that spent 2.5 years developing this system, and so it relies on things like a platform called Clay. It does rely on AI technology. It relies on being participating with LinkedIn, Instantly, Dripify, multiple channels of technology that come together to allow you to very specifically define a search. So most recruiting agencies are working off of inbound leads for people that are looking for a job. They don't do as much search for those that might be working and thinking they're happy in an environment. And frankly, when you think about the best talent, do you really want the person looking for the job all the time, or do you want those that are the best at what they do and attract them to a new opportunity? So we're able to do a lot of outbound search, and for people that are at places where, for all intents and purposes, they like their job, but not exposed to this new opportunity. So very defined searches, and then our outreach is kind of multifaceted. Does include email, but it does include voice drop, video drop. So you're actually connecting with the person in the ways that that person wants to be connected with, right? And we're all different. I mean, if I look at how I go about my day, I check my text first. I would probably I take a call, but voicemail is not something that I'm listening to my voicemail as frequently as I would my text. So again, it's meeting the people where they need to be met is really important. But once you engage that, you have to find out that that person that you have attracted is the right cultural fit for a company. I mean, I think that that is the key to any
Right.
longevity in a career, and the right match is that the culture that a company represents and the culture that a person wants to work within, those have to marry up. We do a good job of scoring those people through our processes to make certain that, you know, through an automated approach, we get a score, but you still have to talk to them. You have to ask questions. You have to better understand who they are as people. And that's why I think the human element will always play such an important role. And we didn't develop our system. We invested in the company that built the system. I always use the analogy that it's like if you want to start selling burgers, would you be better off going to open up your own place and start from scratch, or are you going to have more success buying a proven system that's already in place, like a McDonald's, for example,
Right.
right? And been years forming those systems and creating success. So why not follow something that's already proven? And it's not certainly not in the animal health industry in the way. We're focused on animal health as a niche, and we are focused on sales management, executive leadership, and we also do have a product management, project management component to it as well. But we're staying very focused in animal health as our primary market segment.
What I love about the great recruiters or great recruiting firms, they are the ones that find the candidates that are not looking. I mean, because
Right.
it's kind of not that it's easy, but it's much easier when people have just got laid off from a big reduction in force, and they're out looking and they're posting. They have the banner around their LinkedIn, open to work, which I'm not a fan of, but there's different opinions on that. But yeah, it's the people that they think they're happy, and they are, but you offer them an opportunity, and they may or may not take it, but they would have never even known about it, right? Unless whether through technology or just grinding through LinkedIn and Sales Navigator on LinkedIn. So yeah,
Jeff, and again, I use a tremendous amount of analogies. And again, people that know me that listen to this will be rolling their eyes right now because they know how much I use sports analogies. But it's like the quarterback that got cut from the team, is everybody chasing after the guy that got cut, or do they want the guy that's been playing somewhere successfully and won Super Bowls?
Yeah.
They want to go after that guy, right? And certainly no disrespect to people, because we've all had to look for a job at some point, right? But by the same token, we have both. We have those that we know are looking, and we can make the correct match, but we can pursue those who aren't looking in a way that is the right professional approach and attract talent that you might not otherwise. That's one of the pieces of
Well, yeah, and I'm sure the technology goes out and just finds the best people, whether they're looking or not looking, right? So
yeah, we can very, very specifically define the role that they want to fill and what that person should look like. And we will find those people whether they are or are not looking.
Yeah.
It's the reason, our whole approach, Jeff, is, and the reason I called it Blue Ocean, if you've read the book, Blue Ocean Strategy, it's for that reason, right? Do we want to find everybody that's swimming in the same pool together?
Right.
Or do we want to find those unique individuals that, we would really want to have on the team if we can find those in the place that people aren't looking?
Yeah. John, I would love your take on a pet peeve of mine in the recruiting world, and it's the last step, and everybody loves to make that call to the, you've interviewed 5 finalists, they've spent 20 to 40 hours in interviews, preparing for interviews, all that good stuff. And the greatest call ever is, hey, you're going to start, your salary is, $120,000, you get unlimited PTO, we're going to do great things together. But the other 4 people that were finalists, a lot of companies ghost them, or you get a templated email from HR. So whatever Blue Ocean search firm can do to help that process, I would love to hear your thoughts on it, because I think it's just sad. I've wanted to write a blog post since 2014 and say bring decency back to the hiring process. But
Jeff, I would love to give my input on that. First and foremost, I agree with you completely. There's nothing I hate more than being the recipient of that email or the ghosting process, because there's families' lives on the line, and it's just professional courtesy and decency to look. The easy part of the job is to do what you just said, make the happy call. The hard part of the job is to make the 4 other unhappy calls,
which are about 2 minutes, 3 minutes max each. Really?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you ever watch Moneyball, what Brad Pitt talked to Jonah Hill is, hey, you don't go into this big long dissertation. You just say, sorry, you've been cut and you're going here. So and the same thing is true. You just have the professional decency to call someone and say, thank you for going for the process. We chose another candidate.
Right. And
if we can help you find a job somewhere else, we're happy to continue to work with you. We'd love to. Sorry, this didn't work out. And you make the next call and the next call and the next call until you're done.
Yeah.
And it takes a very short window of time to do the right thing by everybody. And, I hate so a couple pet peeves. I hate being late. I don't love negativity. And if you can't have the professional decency to call someone and let them know they didn't get it, then
after all the time they
understand.
invested, I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that we take that very seriously as our responsibility. And we are very, very diligent about making certain that is a part of the process. As uncomfortable it is, we do it.
And what I'll say too, from a kind of corporate culture, branding, company branding perspective is, yeah, even if you're one of the best companies to work for, yeah, it's great that one person got the job and gets to work at one of the best companies, but the other 4 people think you suck as a company because you.
And guess what? The biggest complaint we hear is from candidates. Yeah. That I've interviewed for other jobs, and I get that I didn't get the job, but that they did not communicate, and how, to your point, how pissed off people get that someone didn't have the general decency to make the phone call.
Well, and then a lot of companies have bullshit answer that, people have been ghosting us, like not getting back to us. I'm like, okay, it doesn't mean, okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to ruin your brand and your reputation because they're like that. I mean,
when did that become a thing, Jeff? I don't even remember when this whole kind of don't get back to people, don't let them know they didn't get. I get if you get 1,000 resumes in.
No, but if you go through the whole process and they're finalists, yes, it's totally. Yeah, I mean, if you get 1,000 applicants to a position, you're not going to get in touch personally with all of them. Obviously, a templated email is okay. for those that don't qualify for an interview process, possibly. But
Jeff, do you think that that's just the way society and the way things have changed over the years, and that people communicate less through actual conversation, person to person, and it's through email and or text? It has become a thing, and now it's the norm.
yeah, I think that's part of it, in my opinion. Also, John, I would say it's everybody. The amount of work that each individual does is more, I think, than, let's say, 20 years ago. And I think it's all about, it's like everybody's want to do productivity hacks to make themselves better.
Right.
And so,
Right.
well, yeah, but you can't hack some things because you need to be human, right? So it's easy. Yeah, the recruiters save time or whatever, but I'm talking about even cases where both it has happened to me and my wife. Like, the company recruited us. We didn't even know there was jobs out there. They recruited
Right.
us, go through the whole process, and never get contacted.
Never
And we
heard
didn't
back.
get. I mean, like, crazy. It's nuts. But
It's why the human element will always be such an
yes,
important component of what we do and how we do it.
yeah, that's beautiful in my opinion. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
John, I love helping two groups of people in terms of their career. One's that recent college graduate, or maybe high school graduate, and they're beginning of they either went through college or decided the college is not for them. What advice would you have them as they begin their professional career and first post education job search?
Yeah, pursue something that you love. I mean, I know that sounds like the utopian kind of approach, but I would say pursue something that you love, because you're going to do it for a long time, and you're going to spend a lot of time doing it. Find a mentor. I can't tell you how impactful people have been as mentors, whether they realize they were mentors to me or not, have been over my lifetime and changed the trajectory of my career. You can't worry about what other people think all the time, you know? Take your path, because it is your path, and you're going to carve it out for yourself. And we live in a world today where it seems like people care more about what other people think than ever.
Yeah.
And fight that urge to care about what other people think,
Yep.
and be you, because the authentic you will always be the best you that you can be for someone else when you go to work with or for someone else.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, be you, because everyone else is taken.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, and that's what I tell people I mentor coming out of college. I say, your thing is, yes, they're going to pick you, but you pick them also. Go to companies, interview with companies that resonate with you, that looks like it's a good fit culture, or you enjoy their products and services. You don't have to. It's not every company. You're not going to be a fit for every company. So start with the ones that have some appeal to you.
Well, which is an important point, especially in the interviewing process, Jeff, because so many candidates sit and answer all the questions asked by the company, and they don't spend the time asking the
Oh
important
yeah,
questions that inform them on if it's the right place that they want to
yeah.
be, and the place that they want to work. And frankly, most companies want the candidate to ask more questions than they do, because they learn so much about that individual when they're asking questions.
The other group I love helping is everybody can be a leader, but those that choose the path of going from an individual contributor or an account executive in sales to a sales manager or sales leader or manager, whatever, and have response for a team in an org chart. They take that first time role in that position. What advice would you have for them in their that type of leadership journey?
Yeah, leadership is hard. I mean, it's appealing, but it is very difficult because you work with so many different personality styles. I think what you have to learn first and foremost in a leadership role is you can't manage everyone the same. Do you have a set of standards that you want to certainly work by? Yes, but if there's discipline required, or there's direction that you need to give, or however you handle each individual contributor that works for you and with you, they have different personality styles, are going to respond to things differently. So you really have to continue to refine how you look at that part of the process, because if you do it and do it well, people will want to work for you. They'll enjoy both the constructive part of the processes, because again, just like letting someone know they didn't get a job, at some point in time as a leader, you're going to have to tell someone that you care about that they need to be better at what they do. And it's how you go about doing that, I think, that is most impactful, because every day is not just about the rah-rah part of it. And you have to embrace both things in a very chameleon-like way.
Yeah. No, I love that advice. John, thanks so much for coming on the Corporate Couch. I'm glad we became friends, and I'm really honored that you came on the podcast today.
Well, I'm thankful that you thought of me, Jeff. As I told you before we had this, I didn't think I had an hour's worth of interesting stuff, but you have a great way of going about, leading somebody down the path. So thanks for having me.
It was great to talk to John. We became friends during COVID, and that's when we first met, but just a great person. I love this story about being a fifth grade entrepreneur where he bought gum strands for 5 cents and sold them for 25 cents. Then his principal did not look upon that favorably and almost expelled him for his capitalistic approach. I'm like, that's why the school system, I think we've had other guests where kids, even adults, are going to be what they are. And not that, it's a free for all, but, you should, what he was doing was great. Honestly, he was helping kids get candy. Mm-hmm. And he was making some money at it, which is not a bad thing. He wasn't like,
he was risking his own money too, because he had to buy it at wholesale and then sell it at retail.
Yeah.
So I think that's great.
Yeah. Now, there's so many good things. I mean, I love that, I have a very close friend, Eastman McGovern, who's been on the podcast.
Yep.
He never finished. We met first day of college. He never finished. He was so close, and it haunted him for a long time. And John basically said the same thing. And, but, it gave him a chip on his shoulder because he worked harder and he was grateful for what he got. And, I've talked about it many times. I think today's generation does not need a college degree. Actually, I was talking to a college buddy the other day, and 2 of his children went to Villanova. And he told me Villanova is at $91,000 a year, and they have people waiting to get in. So if they don't take, you don't want to pay it, they just go to the next person because they have a waiting list. And I think that's ridiculous, honestly, unless you want to be a doctor or something that requires a degree. I don't know. It's just it's interesting. The other thing with John, and we're about the same age, but I love that he started his own business at 62, and he just said, most people at this age are not trying to start a new business, but he started a Blue Ocean search firm with his daughter, one of his 4 daughters, and I just like that he wants to keep on going. Keep adding value. He's in the AI space. So I just thought it was a fantastic conversation. I have a lot of admiration for John, and I really like him as a person.
It was a great interview. I love that. And, going back to the degree or lack of degree or college or something, that made me look backwards on different people that I have hired and who had degrees and who did not have degrees. And I was hiring people for their to be in an IT role, and so I also looked at people that had IT degrees versus non-IT degrees. And you famously know that my degree is in music, and I don't have an IT degree, and then my master's degree is in marketing. So, right. Which is about as non-IT as you can get. But look back on that with other people that I've hired, and I made very successful hires of people that did not have degrees or did not have IT degrees. I had people that had degrees in psychology. I had people that had degrees in history. I loved having people that had degrees in English, for instance, or some sort of communicative skills or something like that, because that's what I need. I can teach anybody the syntax for COBOL or Excel or Python or something like that. But to get somebody that actually knows how to put together a sentence with a subject and a predicate and make it convincing and make it non-colloquial and can talk to different people at the level that they're at, like if they're at an analyst level or if they're the CIO level. And that's the kind of skills that I'm looking for. Whether you got a degree or not, doesn't matter. It's sad, but I think it's true that a lot of times when employers talk about whether or not you have to have a degree, it's a little bit of a cop-out on their part, but they do it because it's easy, because it's binary. You can check a box. Yes, you have a degree. No, you do not have a degree.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. But then if you have a stack of 50 resumes and you're trying to figure out what is the pool of people that I actually have to look at, unfortunately, that's a very convenient first cut.
Yeah, it's convenient, but you're going to miss out on great people.
I'm not defending it. I'm just
No, I know.
I
know. I agree. It's a personal pet peeve of mine that I used to say, like, you're hiring an IT person. The previous company I worked for, they're hiring an IT person, and they wanted the person to have animal health experience. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like, it's data, it's platforms. It's like, you don't need animal health background to be in IT, right? So you're limiting your scope, right?
Yeah. So
you can tell I'm passionate about this, Joe.
I definitely get it.
Yeah.
And but unfortunately, it's one of the realities that we have.
It's true. Any pearls of wisdom
this
from you?
Is real short. I just want to tell you that a man just opened a door and he threw a bunch of milk and butter and cheese at me. How dare he?
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Corporate Couch. If you enjoy the podcast, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me next week to learn from another great leader sharing their professional journey and insights.